Hi guys, this is Christiana and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be showing you the sewing tutorial of the basic glove pattern that I've drafted in my previous tutorial. So if you haven't watched my pattern drafting tutorial, I'll link it in the description box. And so let's get started with the sewing. I'm making leather gloves and this is the leather I'm using. It is springbok leather. It is soft, lightweight and durable and therefore can be used for making gloves. This specific one is natural and has a matte finish, and its other side is fuzzy. First, I lay my leather flat on the surface, and because of the uneven finish of the leather, I'm going to select the best parts to trace my pattern. So I place my glove body pattern on the leather, making sure that the stretch of the leather runs horizontally across the pattern. And with a pencil, I trace my pattern on the leather. This leather surface has a matte finish and therefore tracing can be done with a pencil. Just be careful not to scratch the surface of the leather with the pencil. After tracing, I extend the thumb hole knot inside the glove piece and then I draw in the lines between my fingers. After tracing the glove bodies, I'm going to trace the thumb pattern. And again, I make sure that the leather is laying flat. And then I just place my pattern and start tracing. So I'm going to trace all around the pattern, and then after that, I mark point C and point B and D, and then the center of the pattern. Okay, and then I draw the line from point C to point B and D. The piece on the other hand is traced from the reverse side of the pattern, so you should draw line CBD to the reverse side of the pattern as well. Now I'm tracing out my forchettes. And on the forchettes, I'm going to indicate which forchet it is that I have traced. And this one is a pointing finger forchet, so I'm just indicating a P on the top for pointing finger. I have traced all my pieces. Now I'm cutting them out. And when you cut out your pieces, you make sure that you're cutting exactly on the line. Here I'm cutting out the thumb hole. After cutting out the thumb hole, I'm going to cut through this line here. So I've cut out all my pattern pieces, and for the glove body, I've cut out two pieces, one for the front side and one for the reverse side. And for the thumb piece, I've cut out two pieces also, one for the front side and one for the reverse side. And for my middle finger, I've cut out two pieces for the front side and two pieces for the reverse side. And then for my ring finger, I've cut out two pieces for this side and then two pieces for the reverse side. And then for my pointing finger, I've cut out one piece for this side and then one piece for the reverse side. And then for the small finger, I've cut out one piece for this side and one piece for the reverse side. Now I'm going to sew the thumb piece on the thumb hole. But before I do that, I first have to cut this line on the thumb piece open. This line is the same as this line on the thumb pattern, which is point B to C. So before I cut it, I first have to see if I really have to cut it that long or I must cut it shorter. So I'm just going to check on my glove body pattern to see how long I need to cut it. So from this point to this point is point D to C. So on the glove body, point D to C is right here. So I have to make sure that point D to C on the glove body is the same length as point D to C on the thumb pattern. So I'm measuring D to C on the glove body again. And it is 2 centimeters. Okay, so what I need to do is to make D to C on the thumb pattern also 2 centimeters. Two centimeters is only up to here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to cross out this point C, and this point is now the new point C. Now on both my pieces, I'm going to cut this line 2 centimeters long, like on the pattern. For sewing, I'm going to use this thread. This is a Gutermann thread and it's 100% silk. I'm also going to use a normal cotton thread for holding purposes, and also a scissor for cutting purposes. So I'm starting with my thumb piece, and I've prepared a holding thread which I have waxed, and then I fold my piece in the middle, right side against right side, making sure the top is lining up well. And then on this area I'm tying a holding stitch, and so I'm just going to pop it 0.25 centimeters away from the edge of the piece, and this is going to be my seam allowance. And then I take my thread, which I have waxed and double stranded, and now I'm going to create my knot. So I make a stitch in the leather, and when I make the stitch I have to make sure that it doesn't pop to the right side of the leather, and as you can see it's not popping. And then I continue sewing the thread through. And before the thread completely goes through, I'm going to make another stitch, and I'll make another stitch across the first stitch. And again I'm making sure that the stitch is not popping to the right side of the leather, and it's not popping, so I'm just going to continue sewing it through. And before the loop goes through, I'm just gonna get my needle through the loop. Alright, and I'm just gonna pull it until it creates a knot. Okay, so my knot is done. After that, I sew my thread through the seam allowance 0.25 centimeters to the other side, and then I make a backward stitch towards the folded side. And then from there I'm sewing forward until the area my holding stitch is. I'm doing a running stitch, and I'm going to make the spaces between my stitches small, because small spaces have a better looking outcome. So I have sewn until where the holding stitch is. So now I'm going to cut off the holding stitch. And then I'm going to sew through the hole where the holding stitch was. Now I'm going to level these two sides on this part, like this. And then I'm tying a holding stitch at point B, which is right here. Okay, so I'm going to continue sewing until the area where my holding stitch is. So I have sewn until where the holding thread is. Now I'm going to cut the holding thread away. And then I'm going to prepare to stitch this side of the leather. This side of the thumb piece is point B to C, so I have to sew it on my glove body leather on side B to C as indicated here. So I take the glove body piece of the left hand, because this thumb piece is also for the left hand, and then I turn it to the wrong side, and then I'm going to attach this side, which is B to C on the glove body, to this side, which is B to C on the thumb piece. While holding my pieces together, I'm going to grab my holding thread and I'm going to tie at point B. And then I also tie at point C. So this thread, I'm going to leave it hanging, and then I'm going to start a new thread from point B. So at point B, I tie a knot. After that, I sew through to the other side in my seam allowance. And then I cut off the holding stitch at point B. And then I sew backwards at the space my holding stitch was. Okay, so after that I just sew forward until point C. So I'm going to sew this side of the glove, which is C to D, and I'm sewing it against this side of the glove, which is C to D on the glove body. While holding sides C to D together, I'm going to tie a holding stitch on point D. With the thread I left at point C, I'm going to continue sewing until point D. So I have sewn until point D. Now I'm going to continue sewing the base of the thumb to the thumb hole on this side. So I have sewn the base of the thumb on until here. So now I'm going to leave this thread hanging, and then I move to this side of the thumb piece. On this side, I'm going to sew this thread that I had left hanging to sew point B to A on the thumb piece to point B to A on the glove body together. First, I'm going to sew a holding stitch at point A right here. After that, I then continue sewing towards point A. Alright, so I have sewn from point D towards the base of my thumb, and then on this side from point A towards the base of my thumb. Now I'm going to check if the whole base of my thumb is going to fit on the thumb hole. So to do that, I'm going to wear the glove. Okay, so according to what I see, the base of the thumb has a lot of leather, so it's not all going to fit on the thumb hole. So I'm going to remove some leather from the base of the thumb. So first I mark the center of the thumb piece, and then I mark the center of the thumb hole. Then I tie them together with a holding stitch. I'm also holding the sides together at the area opposite to my thumb piece. This is because I want to wear the glove for checking purposes. After putting holding stitches on, I'm going to wear the glove, and then I'll check how much leather to remove from the base of the thumb. Okay, so with my pen, I'm just marking from where I want to remove material from. And because I've already stitched ahead of my mark, I'm going to go ahead and remove my stitches until the point I want to remove material from. So I undid my stitches until the point I have marked. Now I'm going to wear the glove again and mark the amount of material to remove off. So from this side, I'm going to remove the amount that overlaps the thumb hole edge. Okay, so with my pen, I'm just drawing it out. And on the other side also, I'm going to take off material that overlaps the thumb hole edge. Now I'm removing these holding stitches on the side, and then I'm sewing new holding stitches to hold the curve together on this side and on this side. So I've put the holding stitches on. Now I'm going to continue sewing on this side until the center, and also on this side until the center. So on this side I have sewn the curve until the center with this thread, and on this side I have sewn the curve until the center with this thread. So now I'm going to finish off my threads. This thread, I'm going to sew it ahead a few more stitches, and I'm going to sew it through the same holes the thread that came from that side, which is this thread, went through. Alright, so I have sewn from the center to right here. So now I'm going to tie my knot here. And again, when I tie a knot, I have to check behind to make sure that it doesn't pop to the right side. So after tying my knot, I'm going to continue sewing a few more stitches ahead, and then I'm cutting off my thread. I'm going to finish this thread off the same way as the other one. This is the thread that came from this side. From the center, I sew it further, tie a knot, sew it further again, and then cut it off. Now I'm going to sew on the crochet that goes between the middle finger and the pointing finger. So first I turn my glove to the right side, and then I cut through the lines that are between the middle finger and the pointing finger. Now I'm going to determine the right crochets to sew between the middle finger and the pointing finger. So to do that, I'm going to fold my glove in the middle, right side against right side, and then determine which hand fits in the glove while it is the way it is on its wrong side. So in this case, the right hand is the right hand for this glove on its wrong side. So for this glove, I'm going to use the right hand to determine the right crochets to use. These are my 2 pointing finger crochets, and these are my 4 middle finger crochets. For this glove, I need a pointing finger crochet that has its right side facing the pointing finger, and its back side, which is the straight side, facing the back of my hand. This pointing finger crochet is the right crochet for this glove. As you can see, its right side, which is the leather side, is facing my pointing finger, and its back side is facing the back of my hand. The right crochet for the middle finger is one with its right side facing the finger and its back side facing the back of my hand. For this glove, this middle finger crochet is the right crochet. And as you can see, its right side, which is the leather side, is facing the middle finger, and its back side is facing the back of my hand. So these 2 crochets are the crochets I'm going to sew between the middle finger and the pointing finger. Now I'm sewing my crochets, and I'm going to start off by placing my crochets on top of each other, right side against right side, and then I'm doing a wiping stitch on this side of the crochets. I've got my thread still attached onto the crochet. That's because I'm going to continue sewing on the glove. Because the thread has ended on the back side of the crochet, I'm going to continue sewing starting from the back slit of the glove. So I'm going to open the crochet like this, and then I'm attaching it onto the end of the slit. So I have attached them. Now I'm going to continue sewing this side of the pointing finger and this side of the crochet together. So I have sewn until halfway. Now I'm going to leave this thread hanging and then I'll start a new thread. So with this thread, I'm going to attach this corner of the crochet onto the front slit of the glove. After attaching them together, I'm going to continue sewing the crochet and the pointing finger together on this side. After sewing until halfway, now I'm going to wear the glove and check how it fits. It fits great. I'm just going to cut some material off from the top because the top is too long. The back piece is long, so right now I'm just marking the amount of material to remove from it. After cutting the back piece, I'm going to start a new thread on this point of the pointing finger. So I'm tying a knot and then sew it up a few stitches. This thread, I'm going to sew it until around the center of the finger. But before I do so, I'm first going to remove material from this piece of the finger. So I first wear the glove and then bend the front piece to comfortably touch the back piece. After that, I use the curve of the back piece to mark the amount to remove from the front piece. Now I'm just cutting away the marked material from the front piece. So I have sewn all my threads upward. Now I wear the glove again and then mark the amount of material to remove from the crochet. Now with this needle, I'm going to continue sewing to the top until my threads meet. So I'm done sewing the pointing finger. Now I'm going to end off my threads. So this thread is the thread that ran from this side. So I'm going to continue sewing it to this side and then tie my knot somewhere there. And for this thread, which is the thread that runs from this side, I'm going to continue sewing it to this side and then tie my knot there. And then this thread, which runs from this side, I'm going to continue sewing it to this side and then tie my knot there. After that, my pointing finger is done. On the middle finger, I started 2 new threads. One is attaching the crochet and the middle finger on the front. One is attaching them on the back. Now I'm going to determine the right crochets to use between the middle finger and the ring finger. So here is my ring finger crotchets and here is my middle finger crotchets. And again, I use my right hand to select. Just like the first selection, I need a crochet with its right side facing the finger and its back side facing the back of the hand. And so this middle finger crochet is the right crochet for this side of the finger. Same goes for ring finger. The crochet right side faces the finger and the back side faces the back of the hand. And so this ring finger crochet is the right crochet for that side. Just like the previous crochet, I have sewn the bottom of the crochet with a wiping stitch, and the thread which is still hanging, I'm going to use it to sew the crochet onto the glove. Just like the previous crochet, I've sewn the crochet on, and just like the pointing finger, I've sewn up, made adjustment to the top of the finger, and then continue sewing until the top is closed off. And that's how I'm going to continue sewing the ring finger and the small finger. When I sew the small finger, I start off by sewing the 2 sides of the crochet up, and then the third side I sew it starting from the hem along the side of the glove. Alright, so I am done sewing the fingers. Now I'm going to hem. So I start off by tying a knot on this bottom corner of the glove, and then I turn my glove halfway to the right side. After that, I take my thread and stitch it through to the right side of the glove. As you can see, my thread is now on the right side of the glove. Now I'm ready to hem. So I fold inward at my hemming allowance of 2 centimeters, and then I start hemming. I'm using a back stitch stitching technique to hem. Alright, so my gloves are both done, and I've already turned them to the right side. So now I'm wearing them so that you see the final look. So firstly, putting them on is easy. So the final look is impressive. They fit comfortable, and I love the outcome of my running stitches. When you make your running stitches small, you get an impressive looking outcome. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss my next tutorial. Thank you so much. Bye.